How much do you need to be free? That's a question that I ask myself a lot. And I struggled with that because I wasn't sure what I actually needed in the first place. I thought I needed a house, and I thought my family and I needed a stable income, and we needed health insurance, we needed the car, we needed to live in a nice neighborhood. And I noticed that what happened was that no matter how much I was making, it still never felt like enough. So I felt like I would never be free. Or if I wanted to be free, I needed millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they tell you, figure out how much you need to make in order to be able to afford your lifestyle. And when we went back to the US after our first trip to Europe, I went right back into the same exact trap that I was in before. I let lifestyle creep get the best of me. This time we rented a much more expensive house. I was making enough, so it felt like no big deal. Then we bought a minivan. The minivan was not that expensive, but after you take in insurance and registration and maintenance and all that stuff, it was almost $650 a month. And rent was like $3,000, not even including all the utilities. Food, super expensive. I lived in a high cost of living state. I'd made a whole video talking about how I felt broke making $150,000 a year, but I didn't feel free. I felt more tied down than ever. Luckily, we were just renting, and I didn't need to worry about paying off a mortgage for 30 years. But still, the same feelings of never being able to get out of that were there. And my wife and I started talking because the lease was coming up and we didn't know what we wanted to keep doing. We were kind of a little bit bored with the way we were living, and we wanted to go back to traveling. And that question came back up, like, how much do we need to be free? And then we started thinking like, well, if we stayed in the US, we need X amount of dollars. And I don't have the X, but it'd be around at least $5,000 a month. And that would be moving out of the state that we were living in and going and relocating to like a cheaper, lower cost of living place where we would be away from all of our family members, where we would be away from all of our friends, where we would know nobody because everyone that we knew weren't living in places that we would be able to afford if we did lower our income. And when we started looking at places where our friends and our family lived, I would still need to make $100,000 a year in order to live there. So then we were like, well, what's the point of moving away to some small town or somewhere cheaper in the US if we're not going to be around any of our friends? What's the difference between 1,000 miles or if we flew to Asia? Then how much do we need to live? And I wanted to start my YouTube channel and a lot of other online business ideas for the sake of being able to get to that number, that freedom number. But I always made it so much bigger. And sometimes you have to rework the system a little bit. Sometimes you have to move some things around in order to actually make it happen sooner, because it wasn't going to happen with us in the US. It would have taken too much of my free time. I would have had to keep working a job. If not, I would have had to dig into our savings big time in order to afford it while I tried to build other things, which sounded like a terrible idea. I'm trying to make this work with the money that I'm currently making. And ultimately, we hit that freedom number because of going to Asia. Now, there were some upfront costs like the airplane tickets to get here, although we bought them on sale the day after Black Friday. And there's still some costs when it comes to like lodging, especially going to places during the busy season like we are right now in Bali. It's a little more expensive than what we wanted to spend, but we're still averaging that $3,000 to $4,000 a month. I would like to eventually turn that into $10,000 a month. I'm gonna work towards that, but I figured out our number, and I was only able to figure out the number for freedom by getting out of the US. And it was a big reason why we made this move, because that freedom number would only work somewhere where it was a lot cheaper and that we could afford it. And I'm affording it now. I'm able to be free to the point where I don't need to work a job every day, but I still need to stay on top of making videos and working on the things that I'm working on, because those things will eventually, hopefully, make me some more money as well. But like, these were all the thoughts and the process that went into figuring out that magic number. Like, what did I need to be free? and it's different for everyone. That number is not the same for everyone, but it's crazy how much lower that number can get when you start thinking outside of the box. And for us, the box was the United States. And I think that that's what's important. If you're trying to get free and you're trying to figure out that magical freedom number for you, is start thinking about what are some of the options that you can play around with, and start thinking a little differently. Because if we wouldn't have thought about doing this, I wouldn't have been able to make it work. All right, with all that said, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.